part 2 of our review for the test over chapters 4 and 5 in Econ, micro and macro. And so let me get this. I'll be switching back and forth maybe and stuff. Oh, and I like it straight. I don't like it crooked. Okay, so this is a graph that I referred to in the first section. Basically, you've got your 3 supply curves. Here's your supply 0, here's your supply 1, supply 2, and then you have your demand curves, demand 0, demand 1, demand 2. Increase, decrease. Like I said, I would draw in those arrows so that you can visually see it. There's always a lot to that visualization. So if we're looking at this, it is just like the 2 graphs over here that I said that would be combined. One right on top of the other, that's all it is. So you can separate it out in your mind. So let's say that we had a change in quantity demanded here on D0. Okay, let's look at the original. If we had a change in quantity demanded, that would be dependent upon the price, just a change in price. So that is a change in quantity demanded. That would be either along the line or would it be a shift of the line? That's your question you have to ask. And it would be, because it's a change in quantity demanded depending on the change in price here, that would be along that line, okay? Now, if we have one of those bigger shifts, which we'll talk about a couple of reasons why, if we had a change in demand, let's say people started earning more income, and so they could buy more at any price. It's not just depending on a change in price. It's like, hey, we've got more money to spend, we want to spend it. Then we would see that increase, that shift of that curve. So in that case, if we were at point I, we would see a shift to point B, okay? Now if we jump back to when it was a change in quantity demanded because of a change in price, then we'd look at, if we were at I and price went up, you can see it will intersect at a different point. That is just a change along the line. So I hope that that helps you with that. Don't be freaked out when you see that. I know, it can be a little bit different, but I wanted to show that to you. And then I want to show you this chart, okay? And I'll put it down so I can reach it. So basically, this is a chart that just has more data available and more scenarios that you can answer questions on. You guys saw this in your questions? No. Okay. So basically, D1 and S1, okay? D2 and S2, or we could do D1 and S2, or D2 and S1. It's just different demand and supply situations. So let's say we're looking at D1 and S2. Let's just look at these 2 columns. Where would be, do we have an equilibrium point there? We don't have an exact equilibrium point there, do we? So let me look at another combination. Okay, let's look at demand 2 and supply 1, okay? That's our demand and our supply curve. We're just labeling like that. So if we look at that, we can see that our equilibrium, because our demand and supply are equal, that equilibrium point at 15 units would be at $8 per item, okay? Let's say though, we're gonna keep looking at these 2. Let's say that the business decides to jump up here and charge $10, okay? Does that impact the amount that's demanded and supplied? Yes, because the amount's changed, right? So in this case, if they raise the price, think of the law of demand. It's an inverse relationship. If the price goes up, the quantity goes down. So in this case, if we raise the price goes up, look at that. The demand quantity went down. And on the other hand, the suppliers, do they want the price to go up? It's a direct relationship. If the price goes up, they're willing to supply more. So that's a direct relationship. So in this case, you can see the supply is going up. And then what does that create for us? If we have larger supply than demand, do we have a surplus or a shortage? Think about that for a minute. If there's more supply, we have a surplus because there's more out there. The suppliers are saying, we've got this, we want you to buy it. And the people, because the price went up, the households are saying, wait a minute, I don't think I can buy it for $10 now. $8, I was willing. That's where they're at the same point. But at $12, I'm not so sure I'm gonna buy it. So we have a difference here of a surplus, because more supply, and that surplus, the amount of it is five units or whatever it is, okay? So you can look at any combination here, like the questions will ask about different, like for D1 and S1 or whatever, and then you'll have to interpret it that way, okay? So hopefully that will help you. My whole objective is that I want you to be able to process the information and apply it and pull out meaningful information. So that's my focus, like in teaching here for you guys. Now I've got to do a little bit different here. Okay. Here's another graph that you will see. Okay. And when we're looking at this, we can look at changes, and I think I covered up part of the words here. Let me think. We can look at the effect of changes in price and quantity. We've got two different graphs, and if this is kind of jumping into chapter 5, but while I'm on the test, I'm going to do that with elasticity. If we look at elasticity of the demand line, okay, more elastic, less elastic, we'll talk a little bit more about that. We can see what the same change in price, the difference of effect it has on the quantity. Like if we change that price and we interact in a different place, then we can see there's like a much larger change here, it's more elastic, and a much smaller change here with the same change in price, depending on the slope of that demand curve and the elasticity of the demand. So that jumped into chapter 5. I just wanted to make sure that you guys are aware of that, or I want to help you any way I can. Okay, so that will take care, that's pretty much, I was just showing you the graphs off of the problems test. So hopefully that'll help you. Maybe even just alleviate some anxiety as what's going to be asked. So now you know, okay? All right, so let me throw my book up here real quick, and we're going to talk about the labor market and, okay, introduction to labor and financial markets. There was a really good example here about the baby boomers. The baby boomers are aging. People born from 1946 to 1964, almost a boomer within a year. But depends on which criteria. Some people say 65 is included in that, some people don't. But we are aging, okay? I'm at the very lower end. Right now, boomers are anywhere from like upper 70s to down to 59, it would be. My brother's a boomer. He's 60 right now. But we're having a lot more health issues. Does that impact anything in our economy? Huge, big time impacts. Think of the boomers. They've been a big bubble of people who've gone through our workforce. And now, what are they doing? As they get older, in their 70s, even mid-60s, even like late 50s, they've probably done pretty well throughout their lives, and they're ready to retire and have some fun, or they just can't work anymore. So it's impacting our workforce, our labor supply, it's impacting our healthcare system dramatically, because as we age, unfortunately, we have more health issues and more demand at any price, because do we have a choice on what price we pay for medical? Not really. We can shop around a little bit, like when I got the MRI on my knee a month and a half ago or whatever, I found out different hospitals, it cost a lot different for the same MRI. So I went out of town to get an MRI done on my knee. We can shop a little, but it's still gonna cost us a lot. But with the boomers, we are seeing a shift. Here I said shift, which curve and which direction. We would see a shift in the demand curve to the right because there's an increasing demand for healthcare. And also it's impacting our housing market, because the boomers have traditionally been the highest wage earners, and not everyone, of course, but overall, And they've had a lot of home ownership. I just saw a news article on this. That's why the current events assignments, we'll have another one later. I want you to be aware of what's going on in the news. But in the housing market now, we've got a lot of boomers who are hanging on to their pretty expensive houses. And that means that they're not available for the younger generation, like the Gen Xers, millennials, and that, to be able to buy homes. And the prices are so high now, this kind of blocking these younger generations out of the housing market. But as these boomers, as they start passing away, or they need to downsize because it's too big of a house for them, or they need to go to a nursing home or whatever, we're going to have houses available, but can the other generations afford them? So all of these impacts in the labor and the financial markets, because housing is definitely part of that financial market, one of the big 5, I think it is, that they look at. I can't even list them off right now, but housing's like one of the big ones that they determine how healthy our financial market is. Okay, so then when we look at demand and supply in the labor markets, we talked about same law of demand, same law of supply. This is very important right here. For the supply, who would be the workers, they have to be willing and able to work. So the willingness is, am I willing to go and work hard and keep my job and do what I need to do? The able is, am I physically able? Like the boomers, they're becoming maybe physically unable to do the work. Even though they might want to work, they may not be able to due to health reasons. Demand on the employer side, are they willing and are they able to hire workers? So they may be willing and say, yes, we want to hire, like the example in the book about the nurses. We want to hire nurses, but we can't pay enough because we are still trying to recover from the COVID situation when we went into debt because of the demand and the services they had to provide without being reimbursed. So are they able to hire workers at certain levels? That's a big question. So here we go. Here is, let me get this so you can see it. Here is a chart. And again, we can look here, we can see our equilibrium quantity of workers, and these are nurses at 85,000. That's our equilibrium. So if the price goes down like to 75,000, if you look at that chart, and I am on page 89. If we look at this, here's our equilibrium, because our demand and our supply are the same. And if we go down to 75,000, let's say, our nurses who have trained hard and invested and they've got loans to pay off, are they going to be willing to work for less? Some, but the supply over here of workers, 34, you can see it went down by about 7,000. Over here you can see from 41,000 jobs that the hospitals are willing to provide, at 75,000, because they're paying less per person, they can hire more people, okay? On the opposite side, if for some reason they can't get enough workers to work for 85,000, which I'd be very happy with that salary, but I'm not trained as a nurse either. But if it goes up to 90, they might have to increase the pay to 95,000 to attract enough people to come and work for them. I always have to think, am I on the supply side or the demand side? But can they employ, this is the hospital demanding workers, they can't employ as many if they have to pay a higher price. There's just not enough money available. But the workers, the suppliers on the other side at 48,000, that's 7,000 more people that say, yes, at 95,000, I'm leaving my other nursing job and I'm gonna come to work for you. So you can see how that all works in that labor market. And then of course, we can look at equilibrium, we're equal. No surplus, no shortage. But if we look at 75,000, the hospital says, we need you, 47,000, but the workers are saying, only 34,000 of them are willing to supply or able to supply. So do we have a surplus or a shortage? Higher demand than supply. There we'd have a shortage, right? And you can subtract the two and find out the amount of the shortage. Here, 13,000 workers. That's a huge shortage. On the other side, we'd have a surplus because the supply at the higher rate The supply of workers, they say, yeah, we wanna work, but there's only 39,000 jobs. So here we would have a 9,000, if I'm doing my math right, a 9,000 worker shortage. That's not a good situation, is it? Either way. So, okay, hopefully that helps you there. And there is a substitute effect, okay? Oh, and I do want to mention, notice how I have very important. It is very, very important for you to read all of these captions underneath every graph, okay? This is so, so important to help you get all of the main topics. This book is great on doing that. Let's say that we want to buy a pie, okay? There are the name brand pies, like I really like Marie Callender apple crumble pie or something like that. I can't think of the exact name. It's delicious. It's not good for me, but it's delicious. But those pies have gone up in price. And I did notice that they've come back down in price. But as those pies go up in price, do we have other options? Yes, because we could buy a store brand pie for maybe $2 or $3 less. So that would be a substitute option, okay? Same thing with labor. When we look at technology, and we'll look at that with the elasticity chapter. So if the costs get too high, the suppliers are not willing to supply as much, okay? But if the cost goes down, then suppliers, like the workers, would be willing to supply more labor as the price goes up, okay? All right, but there is the substitute effect. Okay, the shift in demand, in labor demand, that's not labor very good. Now, can we see it? Okay, we talked about how it could shift if there are a lot more people available on that. And good descriptions here, and you can see star, 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 important, important, okay? There can be derived demand. So the demand for something, like for chefs, might be dependent on how many restaurant meals people are demanding or eating. Same thing with pharmacies. As the baby boomers age, there's going to be an increase in prescription drugs. So the demand for pharmacists is derived from that, okay? On page 91, there's a chart that talks about the shifts in demand, okay? And all of these different items can affect a shift, an actual movement of that line at any price. Same thing with labor, okay? And I'm just gonna say, just read a lot of this stuff. Here's another chart on page 92, shifts in supply. And one of the biggest things is technology, okay? And that can very much impact people at different wage rates. And there is a 4-step process about technology and wage inequality. So read through that, but I wanted to show you these charts here, okay? When we think about technology, you can think in your own life about who is more impacted by changes in technology or negatively impacted. Would it be the higher wage earners or the lower wage earners? Think of McDonald's. They now have kiosks in McDonald's where you can just go and you don't have to talk to a person, you can just order your food. You can do it online, you know, whatever. So is that introduction of that technology helping low-skilled workers that don't have a lot of extra training that's very specified in an area, or is it helping the high-skill side? Well, if we look here, you can see our demand and our supply, and I'm trying to look here. It's hard for me to see it up close. Okay, so for low-skilled workers, we would see a shift in the demand curve to the left because technology can replace low-skilled workers. And I just saw that, like with the airlines, they are going to start having automated check-in systems, so they don't even have to have the TSA workers, maybe a couple of them for the problem situations. So that is going to hurt the demand for labor in that way, okay? And then for high skill, a lot of times technology enhances their already high level of knowledge and it shifts it to the right. So that can make a difference on our equilibrium levels. Like here's W0, W1. that would be, we could see that as we shift our demand curve to the left, you can see the impact on the equilibrium levels. And then over here with the high skilled workers, you can see that if we shift that demand curve to the right, you can see the impact it has on the wages and on the quantity, okay? All right. So that helps, hopefully. At the bottom of page 93 is where it's talking about price floors in the labor market. And so it talks a lot about the minimum wage situation and a living wage. A living wage, minimum wage is a level set by the government that says wages, you have to be paid at least that amount. Except for if you are like a waitress or that, you only get paid $2 and then you're supposed to make the rest in tips. So there's a lot of ins and outs there. But a living wage means you could live on it. So at this point in time, probably at least $15 in our area, not on the coast. My daughter's looking and wanting to move to the coast. She can't figure out a way to afford to live without getting an advanced degree, which I'm really encouraging her to, just like I would all of you. So minimum wage, please read through all of that, page 95. Demand and supply in the financial markets. Okay, boy, let's see. Let's think about, there's two aspects of the financial market when we're thinking about demand and supply. I think we're gonna stop there and we'll start